My first experience in learning how to trade properly day trading was through one of the MLM companies that exist out there. There is no secret sauce out there. You are the secret sauce. You just need to learn how to unlock it. I think the number one reason why a lot of people who, once they become consistent, the reason that they struggle is because they're just undercapitalized.
What's up, traders? Welcome to the Day Trading Show. My name is Austin Silver. I am your host. Today, I have a solo episode with my guest, Dan Emmerson. Dan joins us from Australia. He's a great guy, got a lot of experience. He shares some really unique insights, and he loves to talk about trading. So it's a really great conversation. I think you guys are going to take a ton of value out of this about how he uses fundamentals in his analysis. He's a little bit more of a fundamental guy versus technicals, but he still uses technicals. So it's really good to kind of see how he blends it. All of Dan's links are down below if you want to connect with him. Enjoy today's episode. All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. Today, we are sitting down with our special guest. It is just me and Mr. Dan Emmerson. Dan, thank you for being here, bro. It's good to speak with you. It's good to have you on.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Really looking forward to it.
Oh, of course, of course. I know that we were just speaking before the podcast, and I'm very familiar with your content, and I really love the way you portray yourself. I want to say that again, so it's on the record here on the recording. I really like the way you kind of bring a lot of different aspects that I think go into trading. You bring them together really well on your Instagram, and you share really valuable content on your story. So I've been enjoying watching that. And that was why I wanted to sit down with you, not just to talk about what you're doing in your own trading that's working well, and like strategy and tactics there, but also from an economic standpoint. Like I said, like the cocktail talk of like all these things going on in the world that you do comment on sometimes, as I do. I wanted to kind of get your opinion on everything like that. So this is going to be a fun conversation. I'm really looking forward to it. But for some of the people maybe that don't know you, Dan, can you kind of give a little intro about yourself, where you're from, how you got into trading, how long you've been trading, that kind of thing?
Yeah, sure. So as you said, my name's Dan. I live in Brisbane in Australia. I'm 37, and like we were saying just before we started recording, is that I don't see myself as anybody special. I'm just a normal guy. I've got 2 kids. One of those kids has got special needs. I'm married, and I trade. That's kind of me in a nutshell. I run a business very similar to you. So you have ASFX. I've got one called DC Extra, and I guess I'm at that stage in my trading career where I'm looking to educate others. But yeah, look, in terms of how I landed up in trading, it's been a very convoluted process, I would say, that started when I was much younger. My dad has been very heavily into the stock market for quite a long time. And so I think I kind of had that incidental exposure through him with absolutely no intention to pursue this as a career or even a hobby. It was just, when I was a kid, it was like, yeah, dad has stocks. And that was about it. So yeah, I've had exposure to trading in a number of different ways. And yeah, it never ceases to amaze me that you wake up and you go, how did I get here? How did I get here?
I know. I was,
Yeah.
like I told you, I was just doing a podcast with Cam from the Trading Nut, and I was going through my story, bro. And it's funny, like there's just certain pieces of the story I think that you forget when you're like 5 years, 6, 7, 8 years down the line. You're like, oh my God, like year 1, I forgot about this thing we did for a few months. Like it just kind of left my mind, and he said something that triggered it and brought it back. So it is interesting to look back, but it's cool because like when I look back on some of the pictures, and I'm sure you feel the same way, it is so rewarding. Like when you work hard for something. I think sport taught me this. So I'm curious to know about your background a little bit more, but like sports just taught me so much about how like achieving something, overcoming something to achieve something, it's so valuable. Working hard for something and then winning, it's so valuable. So take us back a little bit, Dan, just for a second. I like to ask some of the guests this question. What was the 13-year-old Dan like? I'm curious.
Yeah, well, I don't know what they would say in America or in other places around the world, but in Australia, you would have described me as an army brat.
Okay,
So
why?
my dad was in the army, and so he was in the army before I was born, and
Got it.
a huge portion of my childhood was spent every 6 to 12 months hopping around Australia or hopping around the world, moving as he was posted to different locations.
That's cool.
And so I think it was good and bad in a lot of ways, because I think obviously you don't get that opportunity as a kid or as a family, I guess, to be able to put down roots and build foundations and all that sort of stuff. So there was a lot of, I guess, disjointed to my, there was no going back to my hometown, because where's my hometown? I have many. So so I moved around a lot. And I think the good thing that came from that was it forced me to come out of my shell and be able to talk to new people, just so that I could turn up at a new school every 12 months to make new friends.
100%.
So yeah, so my childhood was fantastic. I had an absolutely amazing time. I've lived in some really cool places.
Like where? I was going
And
to say, where's one of the coolest places that you've lived?
So when I was very young, actually, it was just as I was like 2 or 3, my dad was actually posted for 12 months over to England. And so I spent a part of my sort of infancy growing up in England. And so I was learning to talk in England. And so after that 12 months, I came back, and I remember my grandparents still tell me this story is we came back and I was like, hello, mummy, hello, daddy. And I had,
With the accent.
yeah, and that's probably the worst impression. But yeah, I like England was one of those things that it's really strange, but I do have some roots and some friends over there.
That's
So
awesome. I love that. And I totally agree with you. Like being exposed to that type of travel and having to make new friends is definitely overall a net positive more than a net negative. Because think about like it made me think of like the kids in my hometown that went to college at our community college down the road. They still have not left this, this call it 50-mile radius. They not that they're bad people or they're idiots or anything like it's not like that. It's just you're not cultured. And I think it when you're out with other people, it teaches you how different people communicate, especially when you travel around the world. Like I did London and Italy last year for the first time, and just seeing how people communicate different, it makes you, I think, a better overall communicator. You know what I mean?
absolutely. And I think the big thing that I drew from that experience, although it seems like quite a disjointed childhood, is that as a family, we were a tight unit that we just sort of packed up and moved everywhere we went. But for me, I think what I brought out of that and what serves me well as an adult is the fact that I'm good with change. And a lot of people aren't good with change. And I think that, especially in trading, if you are uncomfortable with change, you're going to have a hard time. You're going to have a hard time
100%.
learning, and you're going to have a hard time remaining profitable over a number of years because conditions change. So I
100%.
think that's a huge thing that I would definitely, attribute some of my success to, for sure.
So what
But
was what were you doing before trading? Like, and how did you find trading?
yeah, so I mean, initially, I'll answer the second one first. Is my dad, like I was mentioning earlier, he was very much into stocks. He was like more of a position trader and an investor, and he was doing that from way before I can even remember. And so I remember he was always very big on setting yourself up financially, having yourself a foundation, and invest, invest, invest. And so that was something that was set into me at a very young age. And one of the stories that I tell some of the DC Extra members is like for my 16th birthday, I was asking for shares, as opposed to like a new BMX bike or a mobile phone or something like that. So it was something that was built into me from quite a young age. And I spent pretty much the entirety of my teenage years and then through into university where I was still living at the home. So my living expenses were really low, like next to nothing. And so all of my money was pretty much just going straight into investing into the stock market, into the Australian stock market. Just, every week I'll just buy a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And so that's where, when I was in my sort of early 20s, I was in a really good position where I had invested a lot of money. And obviously that had grown over time. And it set me up really,
You
really
set
well from
yourself
there.
up well. Yo, kudos to your dad, bro. And I would give my dad the same credit. When I was 13, I had a bar mitzvah, and my dad took the money that we made as a gift, and he sat down with me and he said, "We're going to put this in a brokerage account. We're going to buy shares." I bought Johnson and Johnson, Pepsi, a couple Whole Foods, a couple other companies, and then I had him sell it all after like a couple of months. And I was like, "We should just buy Apple." I don't remember why, but we bought Apple. And that Apple, from when I was 13 to 17, when I needed to buy a car 4 years later, basically went from $100 a share to 700. And that money helped me buy my first car. I was able to buy my first car straight out. So I've, like you, been exposed through my dad to markets. Now, when I look back on my career, though, like that was when I was 13 to 17. And then I was in high school and college, and I was working as a DJ, bro, on the weekends. I wasn't trading or doing anything. So it's interesting to hear how you kind of just kept going with it. But I think your dad also was a little bit more hands-on with it than my dad. So then when did you start the company and everything that you have now? How long has that been in thing?
So I only started DC Extra less than 2 years ago.
Nice.
So for me, I went to university and I studied to become a high school teacher. I wanted to be a PE
Nice.
teacher.
Nice.
I thought because my partner that I was with at the time, it was like, if we're going to get married, we're going to have kids, what's the best sort of family situation that I can have where I'm not one of those dads that's leaving in the dark and coming home in the dark and spending all my time at an office. So, I came to a number of different solutions, but one of them was teaching. So I thought, if I'm going to teach, like, I want to run around and play football and all that sort of stuff.
Not be stuck at a desk. And now look at what you're doing.
Yeah, I know, right? We can talk about that. I'm definitely not stuck at this desk.
No,
But,
I know.
but yeah, no. So I studied to become a teacher, and I was a teacher for close to 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and this is one thing they don't tell you when they get into teaching is I studied to be a PE teacher. Man, I taught it all. Like, you turn up as a first. Yeah, oh, absolutely. Because when you get into a schools, it's more of a, we're going to put you where we need you. So I ended up, for my first couple of years, teaching ancient history and
that's
English.
cool.
All this stuff I had no idea. And so initially it's really scary because it throws you in the deep end and you're like, well, tomorrow I've got to stand in front of 30 kids and pretend I know what I'm talking about. So it forces you to learn, and it forces you to learn really fast.
Right. It's true.
And so that's something, yeah. So look, long story short, I was a teacher for a long time. And even though I was very good at it and I enjoyed the face-to-face time with kids, I think I always felt a little out of place in the education and in the schooling system. I felt like I wasn't like the other teachers, and I don't like yeah, I was a bit of a rule breaker. I didn't like following the same
tradition. Unconventional. Yeah, I could relate.
Yeah, and so my solution to try and find happiness in my career was to work really hard and try to get promoted, because I figured if I'm not happy being a classroom teacher, then maybe if I become, the head of something, maybe that would help. And so I managed to be promoted quite a lot, all the way up into senior admin roles in high schools. And every time that was my sort of, this is going to fix how I feel. And what I found is it never did. If anything, it made it worse. And so that's where I can't remember exactly, it was 2017 or 2018 was the first time I downloaded MetaTrader 4, because I saw something. I think it might have been on Facebook back then. I saw something about day trading and I thought, oh, can you do that? Because I was used to, like what my dad was doing, buying into the stock market and selling, a week later, a month later, a year later, whatever. And so when I figured out that you could do this on a short-term basis, I was like, why wouldn't I do that? I can just make money faster. And I mean, the first time, and any trader I think will empathize with this, is the first time you open up MetaTrader, you're like, what's going on? Did I go back to the 70s?
100%, bro. 100%.
It still looks like that, right?
Yep.
And so yeah, look, I tried to self-teach Forex back then. And it wasn't, the environment in trading wasn't like it is now. There wasn't people everywhere who were offering education. There wasn't a lot of stuff that I came across during that time. So it was a lot of Google this, Google that, and see how it goes. And I had, as you do, I had some mixed results, and then ended up just going, you know what, this is too hard. I'm over it, as a lot of beginning traders do. And then, yeah, I think it was in 2020 when the crypto thing popped up out of nowhere for me. And all of a sudden on all my social media feeds, everybody was talking about crypto. And I'm like, what? Like I'd heard of Bitcoin. I had a chance to invest in Bitcoin very early. And I went, no, thanks. I'm not into scamming and all of that sort of stuff. Because that's what it was attached to back then.
Of course.
You used Bitcoin to buy drugs and pizza back then.
Right.
So I was like, no, thanks. And then when it popped up in 2020, and I could see all these people that I knew that were, apparently making lots of money trading it, I thought, well, okay, here's that day trading thing again. And Forex didn't work, so I'll give crypto a go. And I mean, I know that you've had this experience, and a number of your guests have had this experience. My first experience in learning how to trade properly day trading was through one of the MLM companies that exist out there that, they cast a wide net, they get a lot of people in, and they educate, right? And so I guess that's where I kind of started, is learning, doing, going through their courses, attending their live calls, all of that sort of stuff. But I think because I had some experience in the background from what my dad had taught me from a fundamental point of view, very basic technical analysis, it was only a couple of months before I realized, like, there's more to this than what I'm getting. and yeah. And so from there, it's very much just been a self-development and a self-education journey. So I've spent a lot of time, I've spent a lot of money, and I've tried to educate myself on everything that's out there. Even if it's something that I think, oh, this is a bit kooky, I want to learn it because my intention with trading is just to see how other people view the markets. Because if I can understand how they think, I can understand how it's potentially going to move. So yeah, so from there, it's just been a self-education journey more than anything. Taking all of the bits and pieces from all of the people and all of the courses and the videos and that I've watched over the years, and to be honest, just putting in the time, put in a lot of time over the last few years, figuring out not just what strategies I like, but also what suits me. And I think that's a really, really big thing that I encourage people, who come to me to learn to trade, is that there are a million strategies out there and so many of them are profitable. However, it doesn't mean that it's the strategy for you. You know what I mean? There is no secret sauce out there. You are the secret sauce. You just need to learn how to unlock it. So for me, that's the approach that I take these days with my trading and also how I educate others.
I love that. I totally agree. I was just saying the same thing to Cam. I think you have to understand your belief system before you can try to plug into a strategy. Because like you said, it could be a profitable strategy, but if it doesn't align with your belief system, it's not going to work as well for you. It might not work at all. So I think that's a great point. Great point. So talk to us about what you're doing today on the trading side of things. Talk to us about, are you just trading Forex right now? I know that's what I see a lot on your story. Do you trade any indices? What's your typical hold time? How many trades per week, per day? Give us an idea on like, what's the action look like?
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I think that the timing of this podcast is actually really interesting. And I think this is something that I wanted to talk to you about. Is I'm actually going through a little bit of an evolution myself.
Okay.
I'm always hungry to learn. And I think that if you want to be a successful trader over a long period of time, you need to be a constant lifelong learner and
Growth
be open to
mindset
new.
for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. So for me, the way that I'm approaching the market these days is more from a higher time frame swing trading point of view, with a
Okay.
fundamental bias that
Yep.
marries up with the technical analysis that I choose to use.
I love that.
And I guess my reasoning for arriving at that is I always had like an interest in the fundamentals because of what my dad taught me with, you've got to research the company before you go and invest in it. And so
That's your
that's always
look. That's going to be your underlying belief, bro. That's what you were like raised on. So of course you're going to think about that first, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so for me, like I've done the scalping thing, I've done the day trading thing, and I still do. I still do. It's just that I've gotten at a stage with my own trading career where, like, I'm 37 now, and I don't want to be 47 or 57 and stuck at a desk every single day. For me, the really big thing is that I think that once you become a profitable trader, it's really good because you see the money start to roll in and it makes your life easier. It can change your life. And there's no upper limit to that, as we see. But I think, at least for me, and I think for most people, is that you go through this stage where it then becomes about, how do I get time back? You know what I mean? And for me, it's so important. Like, I've got two kids, and like I said earlier, that one of them has got, intellectual disabilities and things like that. So he needs a lot of time. He needs a lot of care. I want to be able to spend time with my wife as opposed to being chained to my desk. I want to take my family on holidays and all that sort of stuff. So for me, the evolution into this style of trading is more about getting time back, still remaining profitable, but
Your
not having
why,
to. Yeah,
like that's why you got into this, bro. Is like to control your time. So
yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, is that it just goes to show, I think, for anybody, is that there are so many ways that you can make money trading. So many strategies, so many time frames, so many approaches, you name it. But ultimately, it has to suit you, your lifestyle, and your goals. And I think for me, my initial goals getting into trading were just like, let's make some money, and it was like, let's make it and let's make it fast. And like many people, I've done the YOLO, let's go, 50x leverage on Bitcoin long, and let's see what happens. And I'm sure you've probably done similar.
of course,
But yeah, for me now, it's more of a less is more approach. And I'm looking for quality of life and time back, because it allows me also to invest in others. It allows me a lot more time to invest in my business, which, I mean, I say this all the time, but my goal of my business is to put my business out of business. Because what that means is I've done such a good job at teaching other people how to trade that they don't need me anymore. You know, and I think that's something that I'll always strive to. So for me, the trading has evolved to that. So these days, what I do is I sit down on a Sunday afternoon and I read through bank reports. Now, that doesn't sound fun. It doesn't sound sexy.
Oh, super sexy, bro.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is that if people come to me and they say, hey, I want to learn to trade, I say, okay, well, guess what? Every Sunday, you're going to sit down and read bank reports. They're going to be like, thanks for your time. And it's definitely not something that, like, I would never push anyone down that pathway, but this is the path that I'm now on. So I sit down, and for me, what I'm looking for is the macroeconomic drivers of the market, because technical analysis works, right? And it has many reasons why it works. But in my opinion, it's just part of the story. You know, the reason why the markets move the way they do is based on market sentiment, and sentiment is driven around the global economy and how people feel about that and whether things are good or bad, essentially.
100%. 100%.
So it's just about learning where the money flows.
Sure.
And for me, I just want to know, why is the money flowing into that, but not that?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so for me, all it's doing is giving me context to my trading, which I never had when it was just purely technical analysis. It was rules-based, and it was back-tested, and it was profitable, but there was no reasoning other than, oh, this candle pushed off that supply zone or that EMA, or you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, what I've actually found is that having this fundamental understanding, and then having that as the reason why I would be even looking at trading that asset in the first place, and then overlaying my technical approach, that's where I found my
best trades. Yep.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And for me, moving up slowly to higher timeframes just allows me to trade less. It also allows me to, I guess, tinker a little bit with my position sizing and size it up a little bit.
Sure.
And from there, what it means is I can trade less, I can still be profitable, and I'm now having full understanding and confidence as to why I would be trading what I am.
Yeah. So all of that is good. I love all of that. But now tell me, swing trading, so daily time frame, weekly time frame, and Forex only?
Yeah, so at the moment, I generally focus on Forex. I mean, I will look at some of the US markets, some of the indices, but living in Australia and, like, I value my time with my wife, and we've got 2 kids. And like I said, one of them's very, very hard. She works a full-time job. So for me, I don't want to be sitting at my desk while she's in bed at night. So for me, I'm kind of like, you know what, New York session's off the table for me, and trading it any other time of day is really not worth my while. So for me, I trade mostly the major pairs in Forex. And to be honest, man, I would say 70 to 80% of my trades are just on Euro USD.
That's what I always see trading.
Yeah, always, man, always. And it's, to be honest, it's just about spread and execution.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than pressing that button and seeing a red number instantly.
100%. 100%.
Yeah. So it's a psychological thing as well. And not only that, I think it's one of those things that, and you'll find this too, like I know that you do a lot of trading on the indices in Bitcoin. You could look at those charts and you feel them now, you know them. And that's how I feel when I trade Euro USD, is I know, and I can understand where it might go and why it might go there and stuff like that. So my analysis generally starts on a weekly time frame, and I'm just looking for that larger context. And then I break it down to daily and 4-hour timeframes, and I'm just looking for areas, and this might press a few buttons with people, but for me, I'm just looking for high timeframe areas of support and resistance, or supply and demand, or pivot points. It doesn't matter how you slice it; it's all in the same area when you're on a high time frame. It doesn't matter what you call it. So for me, I'm just looking for those key areas on those higher time frames to be able to trade to and away from. And then from there, all I need to do is just set an alert on my trading view of when price arrives at that level. And then all I'm looking for is confirmations based on whatever technical system you want to use. Is, to be honest, it's rather irrelevant in my opinion. And then once you've got that technical confirmation that aligns with the fundamental reasons why that trade should work, your work is done, and just let it do its thing. And sometimes it's, a day, Sometimes it's 4 or 5 days. Sometimes it can be 3 weeks. It really depends on the trade, the momentum of the market, the sentiment, whether that's going to change or not, et cetera, et cetera.
Interesting. So would you say you're 51% fundamental, 49% technical?
No, I'd actually say it's more fundamental. More
That's
fundamental.
what I said. What did I say? Yeah, 51% fundamental, 49% technical. Is that what you
I'd go higher, man. I'd
higher?
go higher. Like,
Oh,
yeah,
okay, okay.
absolutely. Because I think what I've learned in this journey about understanding the fundamentals and why that works so well is that I won't even look at charts unless there is a fundamental reason to look at that chart.
A catalyst.
For example, yeah, oh, absolutely. So for me, like I'm currently, as we speak, I'm in a trade on GBP JPY going long. And that's because I've been looking at the fundamental reasons about why would the Great British Pound be stronger than the yen? And so all of the research that I've done on the Sunday prior to this, reading through those bank reports, I'm seeing what are the institutions and the banks talking about when it comes to these different economies and how will that affect those currencies in those regions?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and when you align that with other data that you can get, and then you then overlay that with a high time frame chart saying, well, where is the sort of level that I want to trade away from? It's just like all the planets align and you just think, oh, here we go. It is such a nice way to trade because I spent years on low time frames stressing, looking at every little, pushing candle or, crossover an EMA or whatever system it is that you use and wondering like, is this the one? Is this the one? And trusting in the back testing, but not having a reason other than what I saw that candle do. So for me, it's such a nice way to trade.
I love that. What are your goals, Dan? I'm curious, like, as we're talking, like, what are you doing to scale and grow next? I guess, like, are you trading personal money or prop firm money? Like, what are your thoughts on that stuff too? Can you kind of speak on all that?
Yeah, so for the last little while, I've been trading personal capital mostly. I've done the prop firm thing in the past. I've had some good experiences. I've had some pretty poor experiences too with prop firms that pull a shifty. And so, yeah, for me, I think the prop firm thing is an amazing opportunity. I really think it's great because I think the number one reason why a lot of people who once they become consistent, the reason that they struggle is because they're just undercapitalized, and I see you talk about it all the time. You do need a certain amount of money to leverage against. And it's no different in life and in business. You need leverage to be able to succeed. So for me, that's literally all a prop firm is. And so for me, obviously, I had a decent amount of capital that I had before trading because of the stock market thing and some smart investments.
So you just took some of that money and you've been trading that for yourself. Nice.
Yeah. To be honest, I put a lot of that into crypto and I degened my way through 2020 and 2021. And I had some big losses, but I also had some really big wins. Wow. And that journey taught me what to do and also what not to do and what my triggers are.
Don't tease us though. Wait, can you give us some details on one of the bigger wins or one of the bigger losses? Give me something good. Give us a good story.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll give you one of each. So one of my biggest losses, I think it was about just over $20,000 Australian. And it was a Bitcoin long because in leading into 2021, Bitcoin was going to 100,000. No, everyone was saying
bro, $1 million. It was going to $1 million. I thought, right.
And so for me, it was like Bitcoin go up. There is no doubt. And so it just so happens that I believe it was like May. It was the day of the Elon tweet that everyone said, oh, Elon tanked the market, right? I was in a long on Bitcoin and the tweet came out. I had no idea. And I was actually, I think it was on a Saturday for me or something. And I was walking to the park to have fish and chip lunch with my wife. And I was on my phone and I was looking at my Binance app at the time and I could see it was going into drawdown. And I was like, that's okay. I can handle it. And I did what, the sin of all traders, kept moving my stop loss down. And it got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm in a bit of trouble here. I know what to do. I'll just add more margin. That'll give it heaps of room because it can't keep going down. So I added more margin. And before I knew it, and I knew in this moment, I was like, I'm stuck.
Dude, when you add the margin, that's like going to the ATM at the casino, bro. Tapping for some more money. Like, come on, a little bit more.
It's funny too, because I do a lot of one-on-one trading coaching with people, and it's something that comes up with everybody at some stage, is that it's got to turn around. It's got to turn around.
Of course, bro.
Yeah. And
It
it just
doesn't
did.
though. Especially when
No,
it's Bitcoin and you're on the wrong side of it. It does not have to turn around, bro. It'll smoke
no.
you 10 times over and take all your money.
Yeah. So 5-10 minutes later, I got that margin call email that came through on my phone. And needless to say, it was a pretty sad fish and chip lunch. But
Of course, but a good learning experience of what not to
oh,
do. I think a lot of
absolutely.
traders have to go through that. What do you think about that? Really quick, not to stem off hard, but it is a good question. Do you think most traders have to go through pain in order to be successful? Or do you think there are the rare, maybe some people who don't have to blow an account, who don't have to make the mistakes that you and I have made in order to become successful?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's trading is such an individual journey.
Agreed.
In terms of just my experience with working with hundreds of traders, I would say that most people do struggle with stuff psychologically. And I've been there, so I completely understand that. But I'm now also at a point, and you would probably be the same, and I think any experienced trader would be the same, is you get to a point where you know how to recognize that and essentially just turn it off. And
100%.
I watched the podcast that you had with Sam not too long ago, and he was talking about, like, just go and look at your trading journal. That will tell you exactly what to do.
Yeah, don't go talk to the Buddhist monk up on the mountain, as Sam would
Yeah.
say.
And it's absolutely right. And I agree with him 100%. But I think it takes a few kicks in the teeth to realize that. And once you
100%.
realize that, you can be very pragmatic, and you can just say, okay, I just need to figure out what my error is.
Yeah.
But prior to that, I think it does take that getting over the lack of self-belief that a lot of people do have in trading, because they need to see a result before they believe they can do it. They
I
never
think that's a
see
really
the
good
other.
point. It's a very good point.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on all of these funding companies? Do you think this is something that's going to continue? Do you think this is something where they're going to get more competitive, like we've seen the brokerage space get more competitive over the last few years? Or do you think there's going to be hardcore regulation and there's a crackdown? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think it's very flavor of the month at the moment, for sure. I
It's a
mean,
good way to say it.
yeah, 2022, 2023, everybody's a trader. You get on social media and everybody's bio, it's
And now
trader.
everybody has their own prop firm.
Of course, of course. And that's perfectly fine. And I'm all for people coming into trading, because I know the
Sure.
positive experience it can have in people's lives.
Yeah.
For me, and I think this is not just with trading, I think it's with any industry, you're going to have a percentage of really, really good and really, really bad. People with
Agreed.
great intentions, people with really bad intentions.
Agreed.
And my main concern is just making sure that people are not being taken advantage of, and they are essentially getting what they paid for.
Yeah.
So look, I am all for.
What was your bad experience? Was it, can you tell us a little bit about what happened? Did you get some bad slippage? Did you not get a payout? What was the bad taste that
Yeah,
somebody
so
left in your mouth? We don't have to say their
yeah,
name. We don't have to badmouth them.
yeah, oh no,
Don't
and
don't
I
get me
wouldn't.
sued now, Dan. Come on.
No, of course not. But essentially, it was just with a prop firm that had some issues with their liquidity provider, and they couldn't come to a deal. And
Sure.
so when that happened, essentially what the liquidity provider did was like, you know what, we're going to cut you off until you sort out what we need to agree on. And then that then led to issues with all of the
Crazy.
traders
Of
having
course.
massive spreads.
Right.
And to be honest, mate, my account became untradeable. So I walked away from it,
Yeah.
which sucks. And for a lot
Dude,
of
and
people,
that's how it is for a lot of firms. They have things built in where it almost makes it untradeable. But if you find the right asset and the right firm, there are firms that are making it more than tradable. Like there's some firms that let you trade crypto over the weekends with good spreads and not crazy commissions. And then there's firms that don't do that, and they are the opposite of that. I mean, like you said, it is flavor of the month, but like just like with the traditional brokerage space, you do your research. There's shady brokers out there in the traditional brokerage space. So yeah, I would totally agree with you. Is it a
yeah,
popular thing in Australia? Like, do a lot of the people that are traders and that you see in Brisbane and near you, are they funding? Are they trying to get funded, or is it still not a big thing there?
it's getting there. It's getting
Yeah,
there. It's definitely not as big as what it is overseas. I think
yeah,
Australians by nature are, they're fun. They like to take the mickey out of everybody. There's also a lot of skepticism. Like, we need to see proof before we do things. It
that's a
seems to be
good thing. It's a
yeah,
good
I
thing.
think it is great. And then there's also a lot of I'm right and there is no other exceptions. And so
Sure.
I think in the trading space, I mean, trading is getting a lot bigger in Australia, but I wouldn't say it's anywhere near as saturated in other countries.
Sure.
And in terms of
Agreed.
people like myself, who are Australian traders who are putting ourselves out there to educate others, there's a few, but I wouldn't say there's a lot. And I think it's you're on one side of the fence or the other. You either like prop firms or you don't like prop firms. And I think for me, where you sit on that continuum is pretty unimportant. At the end of the day, you just need to understand what is a prop firm and what's the point of you using it. What are the rules that you need to operate within? And if you understand that and you accept that, you're good. Just move forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
100%.
I mean, at the end of the day, you can just open up a normal brokerage account. You can put some money in there and you can trade it. Perfectly fine. But you're going to be at that for quite some time. If you deposit $1,000, you're going to be busy trying to flip that account, as everybody says.
There are the occasional people who can, but for the most part, like I had Cameron Foose coming on the podcast. His episode comes out tomorrow. He turned 5K into I think $1.8 million, bro. It might have been 20K into 1.8 million trading crypto in 2021. There's some guys, bro. I mean, and he has 20 years trading experience. So there's some guys that know how to flip money like that when a bull market comes and when there's this euphoria. And that's what we live through. I mean, remember all those NFTs, people spending millions of dollars off NFTs and now they're worth nothing. So when you identify euphoria, if you've lived through it before, you can capitalize. So there are guys, but I agree with you. For the most part, a lot of new traders are just better off trying to get funded, for sure. It's just a better decision. So let's ask you this, Dan. Let's get to a couple of good trading questions as we're coming to the end here. What would be one piece of advice that if you went back to, say, 2017, Dan, when you first opened MetaTrader 4, what would be one short piece of advice you would give to that Dan?
Just understand that this is going to be a process and it's going to require time and it's going to require hard work and actually understanding why you should trade and why not as well. Because for me back then, and I think for a lot of people who are getting into trading, it's very much just about get in, make money. And I think it's so much more than that. And especially once you become a profitable trader, it becomes way less about the money, Like I see you have days during the week where you're able to take your boat out. How good's that? You know what I mean? And trading allows you to do that. And
100%.
so for me, I think it's just a matter of understanding that trading is a journey. The people who do make it overnight never actually make it overnight. It is a long, long process.
So have realistic expectations.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing is I've only put my ugly mug out on social media for a year or two now. But the reality is that I've been looking and learning in trading since I was a teenager. And so it's a journey. It's a journey. And most people should have expectations that when you come in, it's going to take you at least 12 months to get somewhere, and for many people longer.
Great answer. What do you tell traders is a realistic monthly return?
Ultimately, it depends on their strategy and obviously the back testing of what they're doing
and how much they're risking in general. But maybe speak for yourself. Are you looking for 5% months, 1% to 2%? What 10%? What do you typically aim for?
Yeah, so when I was doing a lot more of the day trading, I was
that'll be different for the swing trading for sure. Yes.
Oh, absolutely. More of the day trading stuff, I was looking for higher percentages because I was in, I was out. So I was aiming for sort of 10% a month more if I could do it. And I had some fantastic months where I went way over that. And I had some months where I fell short. For me now that I'm taking the more swing trading approach and I'm leveraging larger position sizes, for me, if I'm making 3 to 4% a month on that, I'm more than happy because I'm getting all that time back and still making really good money.
100%.
Yeah.
Last question. Thoughts on the dollar since you trade Euro USD? Do we see 110 again on the dollar or do we go sub 100? What are your thoughts from where we sit today? We're at 104.
I mean, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I woke up this morning and read through some of the news, and we've had some of the Fed speakers come out and sort of hinting that they might be pausing in June, which is funny because only last week they were talking about it's very likely for a 25 basis point hike coming up in.
Yep.
So all of a sudden, whatever's happened in the last few days, there's been a little bit of a pivot from the people that make the decisions. I mean, ultimately, what I see based on the information that I'm researching is that the dollar is rather overextended at the moment. Now, it doesn't mean that it can't go higher. I think it definitely can. But from what I'm seeing from some of the data that I can draw out of leverage funds, is that they are starting to increase their short positions on the dollar. So
Interesting.
for me, what that means is we are at least looking at a pullback on the dollar. But as we know, sometimes when you're looking at a chart and you go, oh, it has to come down soon.
That's exactly when it keeps going, right?
Yeah, it doesn't have to
So
do
we could see a
anything.
little more upside, 106, 107, and then maybe some
That's,
more follow through to the downside. And when that
yeah,
comes lower, are you then looking to get long Euro USD at that point, and you're looking to take some advantage of that downward dollar movement, I would assume?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, based on what's going on with all of the interest rate hikes, the ECB is very, very hawkish at the moment, and then
Yes.
they've started to back off. Okay, whereas the Federal Reserve has been like, finger on the pulse the whole time. And so the
100%.
moment that decisions are made, whether that's this month or next month, that changes that of whether they do take a pause or they do hike a little bit higher, that's the fundamental flip that you need. And when you look at a chart on a high time frame and you see that level that I mean, it's no coincidence that the charts just happen to be at a key level when big decisions are made around news,
Self-fulfilling
and
prophecy.
always, always. And so for me, yeah, I'm just simply looking and following, especially leading into the next FOMC meeting. I'm just following what the Fed speakers are saying, what the
100%.
market sentiment is saying. Like a lot of people, like yesterday, I was reading a report that said that the 25 basis point hike with the Fed is likely, and about 16 points of that have already been priced in. So it's showing that people are like, yeah, but nah, like there's a
Right.
little bit of uncertainty there. So,
Interesting.
yeah, but to be honest, mate, one of the best things that I've learned, and it's something that I think a lot of people might take a value away from, is just follow the trend in an asset until it ends. When that trend finally turns around, that's your confirmation. You don't need to catch the top, you don't need to catch the bottom, but it will continue a lot longer than you think it can. So for me, until there is that big fundamental switch, the prices and the charts will continue to do what they're doing.
That is so well said, Dan. So well said. I love it. This has been awesome. I really, really appreciate you giving us the time. Tell everybody where they can connect with you best.
Yeah, so the best place to catch up with me is on my Instagram, which I'm sure I'll be able to, send you all the links and stuff like that.
I'll put them down in the
And
description for sure. Yep.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate that. So yeah, look, I'm always down for a chat. I love what I do. I love being able to educate people how to trade, and seeing people's success in that light bulb moment. That's massive for me. I just love seeing that success from people, seeing other people get funded or other people with their withdrawals or other people going, oh my God, look at the results of this back testing. That's what really does it for me, as opposed to, banking a big trade. So
100%.
I would love to be able to help people in that part of their journey.
I love it. I love it. Well, listen, this has been great. I really appreciate you again, Dan. To all our listeners, we appreciate you staying through all the way with us. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you check out the links down below so you can connect with Dan. And until the next episode, we will see you guys very soon. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.